Man back. He's got the best beard in Congress. It is District 17 Republican, great state of Florida, Greg Steube. Greg, how are you? Good to see you again.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Hopefully it's a good new year so far. I love this breaking news. I think we're probably one of the first, if not the first interviews that you've done since this happened. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act is a very, very important one to a guy like me. I've got 5 daughters, and 2 of them are still in public school. We want to make sure that they have free and fair access to sports, like I thought was going to happen with Title IX. Tell me what just happened. It's a bipartisan bill. Is it out of the House now?
Yeah, it passed the House with bipartisan support. I was kind of shocked that only 2 Democrats voted for it, but still, it's now you got Democrats voting for this. It's an 80% issue across America. Even Democratic moms don't want their daughters to have boys in their locker rooms. You've seen all the different clips. This has become a huge issue as of late, and I'm just very happy that this is one of the first things that we put on the floor to pass. It passed the House, it's going to the Senate. And even if it doesn't pass the Senate, because it takes 60 votes and 7 Democrats have to vote for it, right, we are putting them on the board on where they're at on these issues. Chuck Schumer wouldn't even allow a vote on this. And let's put some of these Democrats on the board as it relates to women's sports to see how ridiculous this is. And so I think Senator Thune is very quickly going to bring this up for a vote in the Senate. We all know that President Trump would sign this if it gets to his desk.
Greg, do we have any idea what their mentality is? Because people, generally speaking, are rational. They're level-headed. They get it. Read the room, man. I mean, what exactly is it that's stopping them from saying males shouldn't compete against females? That's not a tough one.
So they start lying. If Democrats aren't winning, they have to lie about the bill. So what they said is things like, oh, you're going to force PE teachers to check girls' gender and all these kind of things, which is absolutely a complete and utter lie, because the bill says that it is what your gender is or your sex is at birth.
Right.
So there's not going to be any coaches, PE coaches, looking into locker rooms to see the sex of certain people like the Democrats want you to believe. It's always fear-mongering of all these parade of horribles that Democrats make up as to why they shouldn't vote for something. And it's a complete and absolute lie. That's not what the bill says. That's not what's going to happen. We just don't want biological men taking trophies from girls, taking scholarships from girls in our girls' and daughters' locker rooms. And we've seen very televised instances of males taking Olympic spots and trophies and medals from women all the way up through college. So now that this bill has passed the House, we're hopeful that it'll get considered in the Senate very soon.
District 17 Republican, great state of Florida, Greg Steube. It's funny because they try to act like they've got the moral high ground. This is unfair. You're checking genitals. No, nobody's checking anybody's genitals. As you said, we know what people are assigned, they say, at birth. Well, we know what they are because of the chromosomes and so on. But having said that, these are the same people that are okay with 6'4", William Thomas, fully, still a man, pretending he's a woman, undressing in front of a team of women swimmers. I mean, how do they balance that, do you think? It doesn't make any sense to me. The guy is a guy, and he's undressed, full frontal in front of all these women, and those same Democrats will argue that he should be able to.
Yeah, Riley Gaines actually talked about that today when she had that, her swimming match, and Leah Thomas was there, and he's a 6'4" dude getting naked in front of her in a locker room where they have to get naked, and obviously doesn't make them feel very comfortable in having to do that. The Democrats just call us, we're discriminating, we're transphobes, we're against transgenders, and that's not what this is about. This is actually protecting women. And if Democrats really cared about women, they would support my bill and allow women's sports to continue for women. I mean, Congress created Title IX in 1972 specifically for women, so they'd have their own athletic field to compete in sports. And now they're degrading women's sports by allowing biological men to compete, and then they say we're discriminating if we vote for something like this. It's a really backwards argument that the Democrats have. The American people who are with us on this, the majority of Americans think this is insane, that a guy like Leah Thomas can take a medal away from somebody like Riley Gaines, where somebody in my district like Emma Wyant lost a medal in an Olympic spot to a guy in women's swimming. I mean, the majority of Americans think this is insane. It's sad that we actually have to do a bill on this, but thankfully it moved through the process today.
I'm glad you guys got it done in the House. By the way, you just had a court ruling on Title IX that Biden could not change Title IX. Thank God. I remember being a kid in elementary school in Boynton Beach, Florida, and I remember my PE teacher saying Title IX is happening, and I said, "Well, what does that mean?" She said, "Well, it just means that girls get the same opportunities as boys." And I said, "Cool." I mean, it wasn't that hard. If you added transgender or gender ideology into Title IX, it makes it moot, doesn't it? It doesn't even have to exist.
It doesn't. It completely undercuts everything that Title IX was and is that Congress passed in the 70s. It makes absolutely no sense, but it would undercut that 100%. And what the Democrats want is they don't want a definition of a woman. On my speech on the floor, I talked about the fact that there are 74 gender identities and how the Democrats can detail what those different gender identities are, but they can't tell you what the definition of a woman is. It's insane that we have to do this, but we're going to keep fighting for women's sports.
District 17 Republican, great state of Florida, Greg Steube. Greg, the biggest story happening in this country right now, obviously, are the fires out in California. We just found out from a great reporter, Ali Bradley, that a 33-year-old illegal alien has been arrested and charged with starting some fire. A guy who had 17 contacts in 10 years with law enforcement in California, a sanctuary state. A state like that is so incredibly misrun. I wonder, is there any remedy that the Congress can do to force a state to do better for their people? I believe in federalism. I believe that central government should have a less power than the states. I think you and I agree to that. But at some point, when you're mishandling the illegal immigration system or problem in California, you're mishandling the water reservoirs that were empty, some of them 117 million gallons not available. Can the Fed step in and say, look, you guys are doing too bad by the people of California. We're going to make sure we make some changes here.
Yeah, we'll definitely fix the illegal immigration issue, and President Trump will do that on day one with a whole slew of executive orders that I imagine that he's ready to sign. And then we're going to pass what was our H.R. 2 last Congress in through a reconciliation package. There's, some argument back and forth whether we're going to do one bill or two bills. I think we do one big, beautiful bill like the president wants to do. You put immigration in, you put energy dominance in, you put energy exploration in to make us the country that we need to be. You address all the things that Trump campaigned on, and we get it done in one big bill and send it over to the Senate and pass it and put it on the president's desk.
But when it comes to the fires, and I love all that, and it's going to be, I think, one bill, H.R. 2, for those watching and listening, basically codified everything Trump did in his first administration as law, where it's above reproach, where you can't have a Biden come in and change everything again. But when it comes to the fires, what's the role of the federal government when we know that, again, this reservoir, the Santa Ynez Reservoir was empty? Gavin Newsom's out there lying that nothing was empty. The fire hydrants were empty. They're lying that they weren't empty. Can the federal government do anything pressure-wise to make that state or some other mismanaged state do better for its people or not?
I don't know as it relates to water. Maybe there is some things that we can do, but what we have done is the disaster relief bill that I passed, and it had an expiration date of 60 days out. So every single one of the Californians that are affected by this wildfire right now will be able to deduct their expenses from their taxes. It's the least that we could do.
So smart.
There's all this talk in Washington about a supplemental. All of the people in Florida and the 6 hurricanes that we've had in 2 years, they haven't gotten any supplemental funding from the federal government. So why all of a sudden are we just going to start writing checks to people in the country when we haven't done that for other natural disasters? Give people the ability to deduct their taxes. They'll be able to do that through the bill that I already passed, and then ensure that FEMA and SBA has the capacity to be able to handle these disasters.
It is Greg Steube, District 17 Republican, great state of Florida. I think that's just the smart way to go. Let people keep their own money and let them deduct all their costs. That makes much better sense than writing checks. I love it. Let's talk about Greenland. I got Greg, between you and me, don't tell anybody, I did not have acquiring Greenland on my bingo card. I had no idea this was even a thing. What are the benefits there? It seems the video that we're seeing from Greenland looks like a lot of people there want to become part of the United States. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, it's big and strategic from a national security perspective because of the Arctic, the different shipping lines that go through there, but our ability from a missile defense system to engage both China and Russia if they decide to do something is very vital and strategic for us to be able to do that. President Trump tried and talked about this in his first time in the presidency, but obviously didn't pan out. But this time, I think there's a lot more push behind it from a national security perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And as you said, I've been watching video too of people from Greenland that seem to be very supportive of becoming part of the United States. So from a military, national security, strategic objective, it would be very good for us to acquire Greenland.
And our enemies hate the idea, so it's an even better idea, right?
And that tells you we're on the right track.
It is Greg Steube, District 17 Republican, great state of Florida. Free speech online. Mark Zuckerberg sat down. I'm now a libertarian. I now believe in free speech. Damn it, that Biden yelled at my people on the phone and made us take things down that we shouldn't have taken down. Greg, this is the same guy spent $500 million on those Zucker boxes to make sure that he had some sort of influence or sway over the 2020 election. Do we believe him?
I don't believe them. I mean, these are also people that have immunity from liability when they do take your ability and your free speech and your constitutional rights away. They're obviously all swinging back to the right because they know that President Trump is going to come down on all of this. They know that they've censored Americans. They know that they shut down the Hunter Biden story and the laptop story. They've done all of those things. They've admitted to it. So now they're suddenly going to become conservatives and Republicans and support everything that the Republican Congress is doing and what President Trump is doing because they know, one, they were wrong, and two, there's a different chief in the White House. So I don't believe that the behavior will change. I think it'll probably change for a short period of time, but that's only because that's the current political environment that we're in here in Washington.
You know, I know Brendan Carr pretty well. He's the incoming chief commissioner over at the FCC. Been on the FCC for a long time. He wants reform in Section 230, which is what you were just referring to when these online platforms get immunity to do anything they want to do and nobody can sue them. Is that the basis, do you think, of these people? Amazon suddenly loves everybody. Mark Zuckerberg is suddenly, a Greg Steube voter. At the end of the day, is it their fear that they now will be liable if they keep on censoring people like you and me?
Yeah, and I've had a bill on Section 230 for years that would take away their liability protections if they do in fact take away your First Amendment rights. So they're absolutely going to try to double down and ensure that there's no changes to Section 230, because suddenly when people have the ability to sue Amazon and Facebook and all these different other social media platforms because they take away your First Amendment right, obviously they're going to try to change their behavior now because they know that could be millions of dollars, probably more than that, in damages from Americans that have been shadow banned on Facebook or have been censored on Facebook.
I've been shadow banned for 5 years on Facebook because I dared interview Mike Lindell and Rudy Giuliani. They haven't taken the bans off, so hopefully there will be positive change here. Now that we're talking about online platforms, talk to me about TikTok. I don't know your stance on TikTok. I do use it, but I understand that my data is at risk. I would like to see some changes there, but it seems that President Trump doesn't want it to go away. What's likely to happen on the 19th?
Yeah, I voted against, I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. I voted against the bill that was passed through the Congress because I don't think Congress should be telling Americans what private businesses that they should be doing or not doing. Right. I do see the national security issues with the information being shared with China. That absolutely should not happen. But I've been telling people for years, I'm not on TikTok. I've told my son, you're not getting on TikTok. Right. There's a national security piece of that, but you also have a business. Supposedly the information was being harbored and kept in a place in Texas that they had access to. So I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do. I think the president's kind of warmed up to it a little bit. But my thing is, from a national security perspective, we need to ensure that whatever information is being posted online or whatever information that is your data is not being given and sold to the Chinese Communist Party.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that we can force some reform and some change in the company. But to say we're banning you and you can't do business here, as you said, we're free, liberated Americans. We should have the opportunity to do business with anybody we want, as long as it's not against the law. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know that Trump doesn't want it to go away, but everybody's worried that on the 19th it's going to go away. It's Greg Steube. One last question. I grew up in Florida, as you know. You represent Florida. President Trump lives in Florida. On the west coast of that state, where I got my start in Marco Island in Naples on radio. Gulf of Mexico is beautiful. But why do we call it that? Can we call it the Gulf of America? Is he trolling them, or would he really like to do that?
No, I think I co-sponsored the bill. I absolutely think that we should do that. I wish I'd have thought about it. What a great idea. I mean, look at how many Gulf states of America border the Gulf of what was Gulf of Mexico, what will soon be the Gulf of America. I think it's a great idea. And it just shows, look, President Trump stands for America first. And to do these type of things that says, hey, he's putting us on the map, whether it's Greenland, the Gulf of America, whatever the case may be. And what's interesting is, had Joe Biden thought about that, everybody would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. But now Democrats' hair is on fire because Donald Trump thought about renaming the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America. And suddenly, well, they have been anti-American, but now they don't want even things named America because they think that's racist too.
And he's not saying the Gulf of the United States of America. Like he said, it's North America, it's Central America, you got South America. This would be the Gulf for everybody. Calling it the Gulf of America makes sense. But Greg, maybe I'm kind of a dumb guy. All you have to do is pass a bill and say we're just going to call it that?
Yeah, at the congressional level, I think the president can do stuff through the executive orders and just say, hey, this is what we're going to call it. And, you know, I've seen news reports, well, Mexico's not going to call it that and other countries aren't going to call it that. Well, they will if they want to do trade with us because that's going to be the Gulf of America now. And if you're going to do a trade deal with us, that's what we're going to call it in a trade deal. So it'll be interesting how you will see other countries kind of come around once the United States takes a position renaming it that. I think we absolutely should do it. I have a Gulf district. I've got coastline in my district, and I'm a co-sponsor of the bill. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, I said last question. I mean it this time. President Trump was trolling Justin Trudeau when he said you could become the governor of the 51st state. Now Poilievre is talking about it. You got the guy from Ontario, this guy Ford. We're not going to do it. We'll shut off the energy. I mean, we're not seriously talking about annexing Canada, are we?
Well, I hope not, because they probably wouldn't vote Republican. And if we made them another state, we'd have a significant problem in the Senate and in the House. I haven't talked to the president about it. I think it was more just showing how horrible of a leader Justin Trudeau was, that he was acting more like a governor of a state, that a Democratic state, obviously. But what's amazing about all of this is that President Trump is not even president yet, he swears in on Monday, was able to get the Prime Minister of Canada to resign just by simply saying that he should be the 51st governor of the great country of the United States and trolling him. And he quit. He just resigned. You know, he had all this opposition, and the President Trump put a little pressure on him, and suddenly he's just like, all right, I'm out.
You got to love it. It's Greg Steube. Thank you so much for getting this done. The Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Hopefully the Senate does the right thing. And whether it's Biden or Trump, it needs to be signed now. Protecting women and girls is so important. Great job with that. And thanks so much for making time today, Greg. Appreciate you.
Yeah, anytime. Good to see you.
All right, brother. We're back after this. Stay right here.